there is no vision statement for Crossref. There's a mission statement which we liked a lot, but we felt that what was missing was sort of where that's going to get the organisation to, what the vision is ultimately. We had a question around what assess means in the mission statement. Is it related to content quality checking, or is it related to enabling others to check that sort of check quality, or is it related to enabling the assessment of academics, and who does this? And then our final question was around prioritisation. Our final theme was around prioritisation. So the mission statement is very full, but there wasn't really any sense of what's most important. And in particular, there were some questions around play and make, and how they get prioritised compared with the other. So the sort of the more future-looking stuff compared with the sort of day-to-day stuff, how that gets prioritised.
Well, I'll start in general. The overall view of the mission at this table was that right now Crossref tries to be everything to everybody. And if it's a community, then first you have to define who is that community. And if you have services, what are the services exactly? So we were missing some clear descriptions and some clear delineations. In terms of themes, there was a clear recognition that boundaries are shifting, and maybe we move to no MOBO situation, no more boundaries. But boundaries, if you try to come to a definition of infrastructure, you also have to find the boundaries of an infrastructure. So there was the understanding that an infrastructure means doing stuff under the surface, but also leaving stuff above the surface to other players and to other parties. And where exactly does Crossref want to draw that line? Also, there are other infrastructure providers, and how is the relationship to those parties? And how do those boundaries change? The second theme is infrastructure in itself is a hairy beast. And it is difficult to define it exactly. It all started with persistent identifiers. So why should they remain the core, or why are they no longer the core in the document that we have here? And also we had some discussion about metadata, where the boundaries of metadata shifting. You know, Crossref seems to be shifting from persistent identifiers to adding content itself, first the abstracts, then the citations, then maybe the full text. Where are those boundaries? A third theme is collaboration with others, because if you talk infrastructure, there are also other infrastructure providers, and more players in the current environment want to become infrastructure providers. Think of preprint services, open science platforms, but also identity management providers. What kind of collaboration should be there? And also, of course, geopolitically or regionally, we talked about China, etc., etc. So a lot of words. Basically, it's about how are boundaries shifting? What do we mean by infrastructure, and where does it start, where does it stop, and what does it mean for collaboration with other parties?
At our table, a couple times it came up that any emphasis on dissemination and discovery that's made possible with this infrastructure is missing. We also had, from multiple perspectives, the theme of sharing, so that more emphasis could be put on that in the mission statement in terms of common shared infrastructure. As well, the term rally is maybe not entirely clear for also non-native speakers. What does that really mean, bringing communities together to actually share things that they might not otherwise normally do? And then there was a sense of, it was not so clear in the mission statement, who are the stakeholders? There is a slightly vague research outputs mentioned, and I think that's supposed to be really inclusive, but in the end, does that sort of water down who really are the actors? So nowhere does publisher, nowhere does a researcher or institutions come up. So there was a feeling that it was a little bit vague on that point.
So thanks very much. So we are Table 5. We're 7 of us. We are a smallish publisher, a big publisher, a sponsoring organisation, a data centre that collaborates with Crossref, 2 Crossref people and a startup. So quite a diverse group. Why is that different? Oh no. That's strange. It's not quite up to date, but anyway. So the 3 themes that came up were assess. So it's come up before. There was uncertainty about what that actually means. There was a question about the community. What is the community and how does that relate to Crossref? And an example of that in terms of sort of the words that are used in the mission statement is that tagging is not really something that Crossref does. It's something that the publishers who supply stuff to Crossref do. So there was some uncertainty about that. But there was also a sentiment around the table that the mission statement is actually pretty good. It's pretty clear, but there was dissent on that point. So some people felt that it really should be changed, and others felt actually it's fine. And we are the Metavators. So, and I think that's probably all I need to say. Is that okay? Yeah.
Thank you. Our themes are there. They're just not quite as obvious as everyone else's. But the themes that came up were partly is who and for whom, I think, are probably the 2 big themes. So that wasn't clear. Who is the community? Who are the members? And who is it that Crossref directly benefits and serves? And in that sense, what does better mean in the mission statement? Another big thing was around the data quality and its resolution. And in that sense, we're talking about resolution being, do we need higher relationships around the metadata? For example, all the metadata and identifiers around just books. There's some sort of higher metadata standard. I think that was one of the points. More of the who, researchers are missing, public society and other infrastructures. How does Crossref partner with other infrastructure bodies and organisations in the space? Another bit, what about equity and inclusiveness? Have we thought about the Global South in this? How and others who are excluded? And how does Crossref address that? In terms of we had certainly one person who was very happy with the mission statement as it was, so that we can back up Mark's point in terms of that. But there was a question about whether the infrastructure needs to be open. That's just a question. Remove the word play, but not the sentiment. Play was another thing. And another thing was membership. Are there opportunities that Crossref could take, which could be afforded that are not part of a sort of legal structure that is a membership community? Are there constraints and opportunities around being a membership organisation? I think that was the other thing. Thanks.
Great, so starting on the left with what's not clear, we really felt it wasn't clear who the community was. It's a very broad term, and we had a very diverse table of different relationships to Crossref. And all of scholarly research is very broad. There was some desire to reach out to researchers and academics as the community more directly. But we weren't sure that academics knew who Crossref is. In terms of what's missing, we felt persistence was missing. This is the core mission that Crossref was set up to do 20 years ago, and it didn't really come out of the mission statement particularly well about registering DOIs, the linking, and that core mission. So that's something that's missing. And in terms of removal, we wanted to remove the word play. It got quite a negative reaction from our group in terms of trivializing R&D and undervaluing the part that R&D plays. We felt playing sounded like you could throw it away when it was done, and you weren't necessarily committing to it. Great, thank you.
As everybody else added, the mission was not clear. The scope and role of Crossref in the modern science environment wasn't that clear. So what is missing? We believe that there is a need to add a detailed explanation what is Crossref about and what Crossref's attitude to producers and consumers of science information. And what is that attitude, how it possibly will change in the future. And what should be taken off is the, again, pretty long descriptions of the mission, and the word play also just attract the attention and believed to be not very well fitted to the idea. Thank you.
So we have ordered these. I mean, there are some common themes going on here, but we kind of went in the order. What's not clear, what's missing, and what do we want removed? So there was a sense that, generally speaking, it was okay, but then we started talking a little deeper, and there were questions about assess. What is assess? What is reuse? What does better mean? Is new technology really a goal? Shouldn't it be a means to an end? And then I think later in the conversation we're like, wait, is assess similarity check, or is it something else? So the second one, what was missing, again, overall it was okay, but as pointed out a couple times, researcher is missing. As I was just listening to other people, I was thinking, sorry, the table didn't talk about this, but machines are users. So it's not even just researcher is missing. We should emphasize infrastructure and community versus member. And someone said, I prefer the word collaborate to membership. But then what is community versus membership? Are they different? Are they the same? We need some more definition there. 3, what we would remove, again, play. Is play the right word? Is the language a little too playful? I think a couple years ago, jargon was tried to be removed from the mission. So is it a balance? Someone pointed out it should be reviewed on a regular basis. So I guess that's it. Did we miss anything?
Obviously, unlike most weddings, this has been well done, because I think we're all very much a cross-section of what Crossref means to everyone, and that obviously brings tension of its own, because we don't always agree. But there is clearly something we do agree on, and that is this thing about membership smaller than the community, but what is the community, and how can it be better reflected in the mission statement? The word broader was used a lot, but I don't think that solves it either. So I think this is fundamental. It keeps coming up. So what was missing? A vision for the future. What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to get to? So something quite concrete. We know that the world is changing, artificial intelligence, etc., but maybe there should be an aspiration expressed. Open is there, but it's not just in the context it's used. It's also can be applied to geography, communities, metadata, etc. So maybe there's should be a greater use of the word open in the statement. And also the mention of partnerships. I think that was just brought up by the other table as well. But Crossref isn't just its membership, but it also has partnerships with others. So maybe that should also be expressed more explicitly. There is the missing completely of mention of persistent identification, which was at the base of everything at the beginning. And there was a tension on the table about whether research output should be defined more. And some felt it should to be explicit, and others felt that there was a tension here that if you're explicit, you exclude. So sometimes being less precise is better. What would we remove? Well, the last sentence of the mission, this only works if you're British, I think, but it's Marmite. People either loved it or hated it. It's as simple and as complicated as that. The role of Crossref as enabler versus being the source of everything. I think sometimes there is this confusion, you know, is it Crossref that does everything, or is it an enabler for things to get done? And the word play came up again, I'm afraid. And I think, again, it's a little bit also with non-native speakers. You know, it sounds a bit diminishing for some.
We also have a very diverse table, people from Brazil, from Korea. And I'm afraid we have many of the same topics that have been mentioned already. So one of the things that was missing, especially, is the persistence of the metadata. How do you ensure it? And there was a question about how you enforce it, possibly, with some measures that you can take. And Ed told us that it has been tried and it didn't work, so it's still an outstanding topic. We also think that the English is sometimes a problem, not only for jargon, but also for the fact that you are using terms like innovative, etc., which is very vague and is not very useful in this context in the mission statement, we think. We have agreed also on that it's it's not very clear what is the community and what is the memberships. What is exactly the difference there? Who is Crossref for? Who are they serving? The statement is really directed towards the researchers using Crossref for all kinds of discovery services, and the ones who are dispersing the data, who are making the services possible, is left out a bit out of the whole mission statement. And yeah, again, about the clear language, it's things like using rally and play is on the one hand something that is not appropriate, probably. But on the other hand, there is a use of very difficult language in the mission statement, which is very bad for people who are not native English, and especially probably, as you said here, for the Global South. If they are reading this, they will have a great difficulty there. Anything missing? I did say anything? Okay, that's it.
We named our table and our team a hive, a movable frame hive. And I should say, no matter their ultimate opinions, my colleagues were unanimous in naming problems and the following deficits. You can see there are a lot of unclear words that are waiting for definitions. And the first one is the notion of community. Does it mean just members? Is it broader? Is it entire scholarly community? The second one is open infrastructure. There were a lot of questions about the notion. Does it mean open source? Does it mean open operations? Does it mean promoting open access? So Crossref staff should take the stuff into consideration again. And the second word, reuse and assess. The second theme is, does Crossref play advisory role? It's a big deal. Crossref staff and we should be deeper, and think about standards and workflows. Because people, especially people without English as native language, have questions. And the third theme is about validations, verifications, and so on. and help me. Sorry, you deleted. Does Crossref play verification role? We need to specify notion validation and trustworthiness. I should add that from myself that trust, and especially social trust and digital trust, is a matter of great importance. So there are a lot of work to do. Thank you.